Hello, my name is Eric Chappell, author of AutoCAD Civil 3D 2014 Essentials, and this is the Essentials and Beyond exercise for Chapter 17. This exercise has 3 steps. The first is to create a pond design similar to the one we created earlier, but this time in a different place. We've got a feature line provided between lots 62 and 66. You can see it here, and we're going to build a pond. So to get started, I'm going to check the feature line and make sure it's got the right elevations on it, and I can see that it's at elevation 169. And if I take a look at some of the contours, that kind of makes sense. Here's contour 169 right here and 168 down to the road, so I think that's probably a pretty good elevation for the pond. So the process here is going to be to use grading objects to build up the different sides of the pond. So I'll start by launching the grading creation tools. And the first criteria I want to use is grade to relative elevation. That looks good. I'll launch the create grading command, select the green feature line, and a point to the inside. This is going to be the inside slope of my pond. Entire length, yes. And my relative elevation right now is set to -7. That seems kind of deep for this pond. I'm going to go with -5. Feel free to try whatever different values you want to try for this design. These Essentials and Beyond exercises are meant to be a little bit flexible, so you can try different things and explore different ideas. So don't feel you have to do it exactly the way it was done in the previous exercises. Slope I'm going to use is 3:1. And there is the first inside slope of my pond. Now I also remember from before that I need to fill in the bottom of the pond with an infill, so I'm going to do that now so I don't forget about it. And that will create the infill of the pond. And I'm going to zoom in a little more closely in 3D so we can kind of watch this thing come to life. I always enjoy looking at my designs in 3D, and it also is very helpful for me to do that because I can really get a sense for how my design is progressing and how it's really being built in 3D. So don't be afraid to take advantage of looking at things in a 3D perspective as you work. Alright, next we'll create the berm of the pond. So for that I'm going to use the criteria of grade to distance. So I'll launch my create grading command. This time I'll go the opposite direction off the feature line. Entire length, yes. Distance 10 feet sounds good. Grade, I'm going to go a grade of 2%, so just a slight grade, but not perfectly flat. And that'll set the berm of my pond. And then finally I want to tie into existing ground, so that will be a grade to surface criteria. Create grading. I need to specify a target surface, which is going to be EG. I'll select the termination feature line of the previous grading object, tell it which side to grade on. Yes, I want to apply to entire length. And actually, I didn't need to tell it which side to grade on. It already knew that because of the opposite side of the feature line was also already being taken up by another grading object. For slopes, I'll use 3:1s like we have before. And what I'm looking for here is I want to make sure it actually fits in the space that I have. And I can see that it does. It's really close in some areas, but it actually does fit within the property that I have. So for our next task, we are asked to continue grading lots 27, 28, and 29 in the same manner that lots 25 and 26 were graded. So let's take a look at that area. Here's lots 25 and 26, and the way that we graded those is we matched the road in the front and the existing ground in the back. And we took a building pad and we elevated it up above all of those lines so that we ensured that drainage was away from the building pad out towards the edges of the lots. So that's what we're going to do with these 3 lots as well. I'm going to zoom into that area in my 3D view down here in the lower right. And I really do recommend utilizing 3D view as much as you can, so that you can really get a clear picture of what's going on as you design. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the lines in between the lots. And I'll do that by using the Create Feature Line command. I want to make sure that I get the right site, so I'm going to pick from drawing so that I'm on the same site as the other lot grading lines. And I'm going to set my style to lot grading. That's actually important, and I'll explain why in a moment. I'll click OK, and this is just going to be a simple start point, end point, and it's going to prompt me for an elevation each time. And for the front, I'm just going to enter 0 and let it be drawn upward by the red feature line. And in the back, where there is no feature line, I'm going to tell it to use a surface elevation. So the front end point, I'm just going to use 0. And then for the back end point, I'm going to click surface. And notice it's referencing the EG surface right here. When you first do this, it's going to pop up this dialog where you have to select the surface. It's reading the surface and saying it's 192.612. So that sounds good to me. I'll move on down to the next one. End point, just accept elevation 0. And this is going to be a surface, and it's reading EG. So now I want to demonstrate what could have happened if I didn't set the style properly. So I think our default style was something like basic feature line. So I'll click OK, and I'll snap to the front end and use an elevation of 0. And then I'll snap to the back end and use my surface elevation. Do you see what happened in 3D view? It drew that red feature line down. It spiked it down to elevation 0. And obviously that's not what we want. We want it to do the opposite. We want the red feature line to pull the green feature line up. But it's all about style. And I also want to point out, if I wasn't looking at this design in 3D view right now, I probably wouldn't have noticed that I had that problem right there. So it's about style. If I select this feature line and go to the feature line properties, change the style to lot grading, you see it jumped right up and matched the red feature line. Now the reason that works is because of the split point resolution setting. And where we'll find the split point resolution is in Prospector under Sites. If I right click feature lines and go to Properties, under Options, this is the split point resolution, and you can see that lot grading is on the lowest end of the list under lot grading back and lot grading right of way. So what this means is if a feature line with a style of lot grading is touching a feature line with a style of lot grading right of way, which is that red feature line, the right of way basically wins the tug of war. It's going to pull the feature line up or down to meet its elevations rather than the other way around. You can see also that basic feature line is at the very top. So that's why the basic, when it was green before and it was the style of basic feature line, it was pulling the right of way feature line down. So that's what was going on there. So to continue the design, I'm going to draw another feature line, and I'm going to use lot grading back, so I'm going to mind my styles carefully here. I'll snap to where our other feature line led off, and I'll use a surface elevation, which turns out to be 190 and some change. I'll end it down here at the back corner of lot 29, again using a surface elevation, which should theoretically match the blue feature line. And also, zoom in here a little more closely, right now there's only 2 vertices on that feature line, one in the back, one in the front. And there's a lot more going on in between. That surface is not that uniform, so we need to pick up all those extra points to get the actual shape of the ground more effectively. So to do that, I'm going to use the elevations from surface command. Base it on EG, insert intermediate grade breakpoints, which means pick up all those little nooks and crannies on the existing ground surface and add points wherever points need to be added so that it is an exact match. Now, even when you look at it in 3D, it still looks pretty straight, but it does in fact create a much better match. So now we've got the backs of the lots established, we've got the sides of the lots established. Now we just need to do the building pads. So I'm just going to copy one of these building pads across to the other parcel, and I'm going to rotate it to get it a little more aligned with the front of the parcel. Just kind of get it moved into position. And then I'll copy that one that I've got nicely positioned to the other lots. I'm not being real precise with it. It is a building pad. It's just basically a pile of dirt, so it doesn't have to be accurate down within a couple hundredths of a foot. We can move it around once it's in place. So now that I've got building pads, but I need to get them at the right elevations. So I'm going to use my quick elevation edit command to find out where the high point is on each lot. So that's 190.56, 190.5, 192.6, so that's a high point there, and 192.4. So this is my high point right here. So what I want to do now is click this feature line, and I want to raise lower by reference, and that is this guy right here. So I'll click that tool. My reference point is going to be the high point of my lots, and I want to be careful that I'm looking at the coordinate readout down here. I want to be careful that I'm snapping to the 3D elevation. There it is, 192.61, and I want to set this point at a grade of 2%. You can see that feature line pop up right there. So I'll move down and do that to the next lot. Quick elevation edit. Here I'm at 192.46, 192.6, 194.56, 194.2. So again, it's the southwest corner that is the high corner. So click my building pad, raise lower by reference. My reference point is here. I want to make sure I'm on the right elevation, so I hit the tab key. And I want to do that again at a grade of 2%. And you saw the next one pop up. So far so good. Quick elevation edit. So here we've got an elevation of 194.2, 194.5, 195, and 195.86. So now my high point is out here. So raise lower by reference. This time my reference point is out here. Hit my tab key, make sure I'm getting the right spot. And again, a grade of 2%. And watch carefully on that 3D viewport down at the bottom right. Watch this thing pop up. Bam. Alright. So the last part of it is we want to create a surface from the feature lines that are used to define the grading for the lots. So let me go ahead and do that. I'm going to open up Prospector and create a new surface. I'll call my surface Lots, and I'll add break lines to it. And this part's actually pretty simple. You just use the feature lines as break lines. I am going to change the mid-ordinate distance to 0.1 because I've got some pretty small curves. And now it's just a matter of selecting the feature lines that make up my lots. While I'm picking these lines, I'm also thinking I'm going to need to supplement these lines a little bit because especially these lot lines from front to back, there's not a whole lot of data points on them. There's only two, in fact, one here and one here. the building pads only have, I think maybe 6 or 8 data points, so there's not a whole lot of points there to define a surface with. And I want to make sure I pick the road feature line as well. So those are all my feature lines. And that actually looks pretty good. I didn't do any supplementing or weeding. I'm going to click on that. I want to get a little closer look at it, so I'm going to click on it and open it in Object Viewer and change my visual style here to shaded. Let me make this window a little bigger so we can get a better look at what we have. You can see the ditches created in between the lots. You can see the building pad very well. And that's looking like a pretty well graded lot. Let me change to conceptual. Shaded with edges. I think shaded is our best bet there to see a real model of what we have. Alright, so there's a 3D model of the lot grading that you've been working on. So with that concludes the Essentials and Beyond exercise for Chapter 17.